What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the new episode of the Believe in Oregon podcast, the Big Ten champion episode of the Believe in Oregon podcast. I'm coming to you live from Indianapolis right now. It's going to be a little bit of a shorter show, a little bit of a more unstructured show because it's currently 3:15 in the morning and I have to board a flight in a few hours. So I wanted to get this podcast out to you guys before I have a long day tomorrow for sure. So let's just get right into it. This was a good game for the Ducks. 45-37 final. Really, really entertaining game. I did not expect it to be this high scoring. My score prediction was 27-20. I think they far surpassed that in the first half alone. Oregon got out to a 28-10 lead, kind of let Penn State get back into a 28-24, 31-24 going into half, if I remember correctly. Just a really, really fun game. Oregon kind of just proved that they had what it took in the second half. They played a really good third quarter, which is not something we've seen very much this year, and then a really, really impressive fourth quarter as well. And just kind of sat on the lead at the end of the game, got a couple of really major takeaways. That game-sealing interception from Nico Reed to end the game. Incredible stuff. We're going to get right into just some of our biggest takeaways from this game. Again, a little bit more of an unstructured podcast because, to be completely honest, I'm exhausted and I want to go to bed. So to start out, let's talk Dillon Gabriel. Man, this guy, I mean, we knew coming in from his time in Oklahoma and his time at UCF a little bit too, but mostly his time at Oklahoma, he's a big game quarterback. And that's, Bo Nix, as good as he was not always considered a big game quarterback. Sometimes he didn't play his best football when the lights got the brightest. Dillon Gabriel's the exact opposite. I mean, he's good when the eyes are on him. I asked him after the game about this, and paraphrasing what he said, just, these are the moments you live for, like growing up, throwing the football in the front yard, playing flag football, two-hand touch with your friends. These are the games that you envision and the moments that you envision, that you dream of. And I think that's why he plays so well in these spots. He's just kind of envisioned this moment day after day in his life. He had an incredible game, 22 for 32, I think 283 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Just some really, really, big time plays. There was a 4th and 2 where he had to scramble a little bit, find Terrence Ferguson in the second half. I think that was in the fourth quarter. A 3rd and 1 to seal the game where he used his legs to run up the middle, escape the pocket, seal the game. Just, on the move, rolling out to his left, rolling out to his right, finding Tess Johnson, throwing on the run. This is one of his best games, in an Oregon uniform. And I think it's interesting. I saw Jeff Schwartz talk about this on Twitter. I think his 2 best games as a Duck came against Ohio State and against Penn State in, the 2 biggest games of Oregon's season. That's so impressive and so encouraging for Oregon that, when you've got everything on the line and you're playing in these quote unquote championship scenarios, obviously Big Ten championship, not the national championship, but still a championship trophy on the line. He shows up and your quarterback delivers. I was just really impressed with him. He didn't have those mistakes today that we've seen so often. Not so often, that's unfair to him, but that we've seen occasionally from him throughout the year. Those red zone interceptions. He did have 1 fumble today, but he hopped right back on it. That would have been a bad time for a fumble when that did come. I think that was in the 3rd quarter. But Dillon Gabriel, props to him, man. He had an absolutely incredible day, and you love to see that. Staying on the incredible days, incredible performances, Tess Johnson, man, he set a career high in receiving yards. I think he had 11 catches for 181 yards and a touchdown. He had over 100 yards at halftime alone, which is just so incredibly impressive. He's just I wrote about this a little bit after the game. It's hard to say that anyone on this team other than Dillon Gabriel is the MVP of this team just because he's so important as the quarterback and he touches the ball every single play. And, as he goes, the team goes. But when you talk about actual value, you can separate offensive player of the year and most valuable player of the year. In my mind, Tess Johnson's the most valuable player on this team because when you see him on the field and you see the way this team looks with him on the field versus how they look without him on the field, it's night and day. I mean, he's so quick with the ball and so good in the open field that, it's just a completely different offense when he's on the field. So he had a great game. He had his fingerprints all over this game. I was really impressed by what he did. It's also really cool. I learned after the game, I didn't know this was the case, but this was the first game that his biological family ever saw him play in college. Obviously the famous story everyone knows, it's been drilled into our brains, that he was adopted by Bo Nix's family, but this is the first time that his biological family got to be in attendance for one of his games. And he told them before the game, he said, if you guys are coming, I'm going to put on a show for you. And he absolutely did. Career high, 181 receiving yards. I saw that it was the most ever in a Big Ten championship game. Kudos to him, man. That was incredibly impressive. Next offensive thing. Let's keep it positive before we get a little bit negative. Because, despite this being a great win, there were a couple negative things to get to. But Kenyan Sadiq, let's just keep it positive right now. We have seen so many times this year, like little snippets of Sadiq, like what he can do, like little breadcrumbs, like, okay, you guys want to see Kenyan Sadiq break out. Here's a 12-yard reverse, or here's an 18-yard reception for a first down, where it's like, oh, man, this guy, he's got it. I can't wait to see what he looks like as a tight end one. We got a pretty healthy dose of Kenyan Sadiq early in this game, and it was so much fun. The very first drive of the game, Dillon Gabriel finds him streaking down the right sideline. I think it was on a wheel route. I need to go watch the tape, but finds him on the sideline wide open. He gets the ball and he's rumbling towards the end zone. One defender to beat, and he just jumps over him, just hurdles him and clears him and goes on for a touchdown. I was just watching SportsCenter before I hopped on the podcast. That made the SC top 10. It was the number 5, which let's be real, should have been better than number 5. And then the next drive down, he caught his second touchdown of the game on a nice little slip out route where the linebacker wasn't ready to cover him. So I think on the game he ended with 2 catches for 30 yards and 2 touchdowns. Not a huge sample size, but when he's got the ball in his hands, he's making the most of it. So it's just, I still want to see more from him, just not because I need to see more from him, but just I want to. He's an incredibly talented player, and he's so fun to watch play with the ball in his hands. I asked Tess Johnson after the game, like, when he makes a play like that on the first play of the game, when he hurdles someone like that in the end zone, like, how much does that fire you guys up? Like, is that just like a spark for the sideline, for the team? And he basically said, I didn't expect this. He's like, no, I mean, that's just Kenyan. He does that every day in practice. We see him do that all the time. That's nothing. So I just can't wait to see more of him. I want a bigger sample size. This guy we've seen it time and time again that he's so good. And I think he's got a really, really bright future in Eugene. All right, let's talk. Let's get a little bit negative. And not negative. I mean, Oregon won the game, so it's hard to be too negative. But Oregon's defense, I didn't expect Penn State. I'm looking up the stats right now. I did not expect Penn State to have this good of a day offensively. They had 518 total yards, 37 points. They rushed for 292 yards. Katron Allen had 124 yards and a touchdown. Nick Singleton had 105 yards. Drew Aller rushed for 54 yards. Oregon's defense was just, this was not their best game of the year for sure. They came up with a couple of really, really big plays when they needed to. Dante Manning had an interception in the first half that he almost took it for 6. He got down on the 1-yard line, but then Jordan James punched in the next play to make it, I think that made it 28-10. And then obviously the Nico Reed interception on Penn State's last drive of the game to kind of seal a win. There was good moments, there was good highlights and some good plays, but overall, this is not a, I don't think they'll be using this for teach tape anytime soon. If it's learn tape, like you're teaching them lessons by saying, hey, don't do this, because Oregon's defensive line got pushed around, man. It was interesting going into this game. One of the narratives was Penn State is physical. Are they more physical than Oregon? They're going to be bigger boys, bigger bodies. This is Big Ten football. I was part of the camp as a lot of Oregon fans were saying, you know what, Oregon's a really physical team. They'll be just fine against these guys. I think they learned something. I mean, this team, they got pushed around a little bit. I was surprised that Derek Harmon did not have a great day. Jamari Caldwell did not have a good day. I'm excited to go back and watch the film to really see what Penn State was doing successfully against them. But their offensive line just played really well, man. And, they did a good job of scheming offensively to get the ball out quickly. Drew Aller was not back there taking 5 or 7 foot or 7-step drops and, kind of surveying the field. They threw a lot of quick passes, a lot of quick outs, quick stuff over the middle of the field. They didn't allow Mateo Uyunglele or Jordan Birch to get a pass rush. I think Oregon had 1 sack on the night, and it came in third quarter or fourth quarter, if I'm remembering correctly. This was not a game for Oregon's defensive line that you're going to remember very well. Fortunately, the offense had the day that it did, and they were able to play incredibly well. But this is something that, it's good that Oregon now has the next 2 weeks off, because we'll talk about the college playoff in a second, but everyone has this next week off, and they've got that first round bye after that. So they've got some time to not only get healthy, but to, improve on some stuff, because I'm sure they'll look at the tape from this and say, hey, we're going to see some big boys going forward again. This is not the last time we'll see some dominant offensive lines. So they've got a lot of stuff to clean up for sure. What else do we need to get to? I thought the Ducks did actually a pretty good job against Tyler Warren. We talked about that being one of the major keys to the game coming in, because Tyler Warren, the tight end for Penn State, is, arguably the best tight end in the nation. They held him to 7 catches for 84 yards. I think most of that came in the first half, though. I think he only had a couple of catches in the second half. So, they did a good job. They held him out of the end zone, which, it's impressive considering what he's been able to do this year. So, I think they should feel pretty good about what they did with him. Obviously, when you have over 500 yards of offense against you, there's a lot of things to clean up. But all in all, I don't think that Tyler Warren is the reason why Penn State had so much success offensively today. There were a lot of different reasons, and most of it came on the run game. Let's see. What else do we want to talk about today? Evan Stewart. It's not a big one, but he was, nowhere out there. Evan Stewart had, I think, 0 targets, 0 catches or anything. He kind of looked like more of a decoy than anything. I'm not sure if he's dealing with an injury we don't know of, or if he may be sick, something like that. Seems like that might be the case. Maybe he just was not fully healthy going into this game, was not, feeling himself. And they said, hey, instead of keeping you out, we want to keep you out there as a decoy. And I think it works. I always think back to my favorite team, the Denver Broncos, and what they did with Terrell Davis in one of the Super Bowls when he had such a bad migraine that he couldn't even see. But Mike Shanahan kept putting him out there because he said, hey, you being out there makes the defense pay attention to you. They don't know how banged up you are, how you can't see because you have a migraine. So we're going to keep you out there because it helps the rest of our offense. I think that may have been what happened with Evan Stewart this week, because he could be sick. He could be under the weather. He could be a little bit banged up. I don't know. It just seems weird that they would have him out there for the full game and literally not go in his direction a single time. So I don't know. This is another good reason to have that bye week and have 2 bye weeks coming up pretty much and get him fully healthy, get the whole team fully healthy going forward. I think they'll be in a good spot. Speaking of health, Marcus Harper did return for this game. They kind of did a weird rotation on the offensive line. Harper played a lot of right guard. They played Dave Iuli a lot of guard, and they played Nishad Strother a lot of guard, and kind of rotated through those 3 throughout the game. I don't know what the exact, strategy was there. If there were, certain drives when they needed one of their skill sets over the other skill set. Who am I to coach them up or complain? Whatever they did worked. They put up 45 points. I think they're doing pretty well in the offensive line. So that's that. I don't think I have really anything else on this game specifically right now, at least not that I have energy for. With the win, Oregon locked up that number 1 seed in the playoff. They've got the first round bye, which I've always been saying is absolutely the right call, because yes, while you now will probably face Ohio State or Tennessee in the second round, you get 2 weeks off before that. You get that game in the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day. a classic Pac-12 venue. I think Oregon fans are going to show up and show out for this game. It's kind of interesting to see how few Oregon fans were in Indianapolis tonight. It feels like, I mean, I don't blame any of them. It feels like fans are just kind of saving their money because they know a playoff run is going forward. So I'm really excited for that Rose Bowl game. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. I already know that a lot of my friends are going. I'm trying to get some family to go as well. Let's all just go down to Pasadena and have a nice little New Year's and hopefully get a win over Ohio State or Tennessee. Go on to the quarterfinal, go on to the semifinals, go on to the championship. Hopefully see some more confetti fall. I think that is all I've got for you tonight. Like I said, I want to keep it short because I am getting on an airplane in approximately 4 hours, and I would like to get some sleep before that. So with that being said, you can check out more of my work at duckswire.usatoday.com. Follow me at Zachary C. Neal on Twitter. Go ahead and follow my co-host, Jonathan Stewart, on Twitter at JonathanStewart1, and make sure to check out the Believe in Panthers podcast and the Stew and Crew podcast as well. For myself, Zach Neal, for my co-host, Jonathan Stewart, we'll talk to you guys next week. Until then, take it easy.